And it also flows further than that, because if we get integrated, the passenger rail then would go through Chicago, connecting directly with all of the Illinois Amtrak routes, one of which goes all the way down to St. Louis. But it would also connect Wisconsin passenger rail with Indiana, Ohio, and the Northeast corridor. And we're having a meeting that is a Zoom event that you can attend, and I'll get anybody who's interested the information on how to sign up, that will explain through one of our mayors how you can do that. You can actually get on a train in Milwaukee right now and go all the way out to Washington, D.C. But it'd be great for our area if we could see extended passenger rail service all the way to Green Bay. And there's a couple of things that are pushing this along. One of them is that the city of Green Bay has secured a harbor grant from federal funding to move the coal docking, the place where coal was brought in for shipping on Green Bay. And that means that the area that they're moving that dockage from can be transposed into a passenger rail terminus. The train that would run up there would then have the ability to turn around, to have a small hub for transportation repairs, and then would be able to return on tracks that already exist. So I point that out. Here we've got the end terminus with some funding that should carry us further in the process, which will be taking, of course, 4 or 5 years at least. But we had that in place. We've got that secured. What we're doing now in terms of the state budget is we're trying to make sure that we have a place as a passenger rail connection for those next 4 or 5 years. And why is that so important? Well, the federal bipartisan infrastructure law funding that was passed by Congress runs out at the end of the fiscal year in 2025. And I would rather see the funding from the state that has to come into developing passenger rail at whatever percentage it does get required be secured, or looking forward at least 2 years, if not this biennial budget, the next one, to make sure that there is some money to match any federal requirements to receive the federal funding to complete this passenger rail extension. But again, I'm going to say, and there's a question I need to talk with you folks in Washington County. How do we connect right now? We have rail that pretty much through that whole corridor from Green Bay down to the 2 stations in Milwaukee can be connected on existing rail. So it's a proposition that if it can get funded now and can get rolling, then the train can go. And of course, we'd love to see maybe some changes to the line down the road to try to get service to other communities. My understanding is right now that West Bend and Eden are not the locations in Washington County that Wisconsin Department of Transportation has planned for. But there are other places in this connection. There's a town called Slinger that has rail that's there, and it's serviceable. There's also Germantown. And Germantown is a location which I think would be a great location for people who want to use Amtrak, maybe to commute into work to Milwaukee. So that's real world possibilities. Other things that could happen, and this gets to our hopes and aspirations. We'd love to see the 30th Street corridor in Milwaukee get developed. I think there's a lot of people that could agree on that. The freight rail that does pass through the Beer District right now, it could use some station or grade or rail improvement that would make the freight move through there faster. But wouldn't it be great if we had a passenger service that actually runs through that corridor, ends up reconnecting, of course, with the Hiawatha line in Milwaukee on the southern portion, but before that has a stop at American Family Field. That train line is not that far away right now. And another thing in the budget that the governor's speaking to right now are stadium improvements for American Family Field, right in this line with the existing rail that's there and the 30th Street corridor. Going back up to Green Bay, the Packers right now are very interested in seeing this develop. We have been talking to them with the hope that maybe it would not only be that terminus station at the end where the coal docking is now, which we're calling the Green Bay Station, but it also might be another station on Lombardi Avenue in Ashland that would be very close to Lambeau Field. To get the funding at this point, in this stage of the infrastructure required corridor identification filing, these precise points don't have to be put in, but they will if the train that we're supporting as the Green Bay extension is selected by the Federal Railroad Administration. The good news is, of course, that funding source would give up to $500,000 to help communities that are selected to plan for passenger rail expansion. So that's the focal point right now, but we need help with what is going on with the state budget. We'd like to see our extension named as one of those lines where there is at least enough funding to go back and show the Federal Railroad Administration the state of Wisconsin is behind this proposed route, maybe just to the extent of a single-digit $1 million figure that could be pointed to as what we can do right now to do our part of the planning. Then it goes further, of course, if the Federal Railroad Administration selects that as one of the corridors for passenger rail. Another couple of things, and I think I'm speaking to people who are very connected, are very aware of what's going on. This young lady mentioned the climate, the environment. We as train advocates haven't spoken enough about the piece that passenger rail can play in helping control carbon emissions. Part of the federal law that does control the funding of passenger rail does speak to that, and the Wisconsin Department of Transportation has recognized that. They do see expanding passenger rail as beneficial to the environment and something that would help us qualify for federal funding. If you look at the draft plan that they've submitted right now, they have documented the case that you have over 50% of manufacturing along the Fox River Valley. You've got over 1.8 million workers that are in that area that might be able to go to, if it's not manufacturing, whatever office or other type of job they have using passenger rail. And another component that we haven't spoken a lot about is the fact that there's an equity consideration in where do you fund passenger rail. Wisconsin Department of Transportation has done a great job in not only naming areas in the state that are along the Fox River Valley and into Milwaukee, but providing numbers of how many people in underserved transportation lacking communities there are in our state. And they seem to follow the line that we propose as being from Green Bay through Milwaukee that we hope does gain some state support.
Let me add to this. So one of the things we could do, so if I were the representative from the 38th district and I wanted to have a town hall meeting on this, we can go in depth in your particular area, whether it be Madison or even southeastern Wisconsin or Washington and Saukee counties for Appleton. So we have conducted about 9 community forums throughout the state. We've done Watertown, for example, 27 below zero and 40 people showed up. A lot of retirees that Andy's group, a lot of people, community development people, downtown people, people that want to see the stations, want to see their communities connected. So we can offer you any help in putting something like that specifically together, where we could bring in people that are on the trains, that work the trains, that are knowledgeable to give you that perspective. And so that's what we're about. And we told Jacob Pankratz from the governor's office this morning that we support the TCMC initiative that's in the budget. And I think we're going to see buy-in from some of the legislators that, again, goes through Wisconsin Dells, that area, coming forward and being supportive of us. But I just wanted to add in, we could also do a train trip. Nona and Clark have organized these in the past, where we get 4 or 5 people to go on a train, to go over the tracks and to see it for themselves. So that's a takeaway for you, whether it's Milwaukee or Madison or rural areas of the state.